Hey, good morning. Chuck here with Apple Drains. Today we're installing a yard drain, a system that hopefully will protect the foundation of this small home here. Let's take a look. Give you some tips on planning because there's a lot of obstacles here that are going to be underground. Let's take a look here. So starting here in the back corner of the yard, you can see this giant tree here, and the root system is tremendous. This is going to be covering throughout the entire yard, and we've got an above ground septic field, which that's not a problem per se, but we've got sewer that comes into the septic tank, and I'm pretty sure that the tank is right here. A couple other obstacles that we need to move. She's got some planters here which are falling apart with ivy that comes up through trellises. We need to trench from that corner all the way down through. We're going to cross over the sewer line, probably some power lines as well, and come around. You can see there's another, this was a avocado tree which has been blown down from the hurricanes. You cut it off, but tremendous root system there. You can see some old pipe into the ground here. You can see a clean out for the sewer, which is there. We're going to go all the way out to the street, and there's a few more obstacles out there as well. So we want to put a sump pump in here, and here where the shovels are is where I wanted to put the sump basin. Because that sewer line's there, we need to see where that is. You can see there's another vent coming out of the wall there. That's probably a kitchen sink that ties in. So we know that this line's coming down through here. That's going to determine where we put our sump pit, the basin itself. What's happening is that when it rains hard, water floods. You can see it's kind of uphill to the back, so water comes this direction. It floods across, and you can see how low it is to the slab of the house, just a few inches above. She had a handyman install a small drain here, and that drain runs out and over into the grass into what's called a dry well. Again, dry wells do not work. Once groundwater rises and comes up, the dry well can no longer function. And so all the comments and all the other things that people write about how well their dry well works, it's only because the groundwater, the ground table water, didn't flood your little area. But here in Central Florida, when you dig down a foot or so, you hit water. So the dry wells don't work for the most part. So again, think about planning. You know, we've had those flower pots in the way that are we moved over onto the patio, but we didn't expect to find this. This is buried underground. We've got a slab of concrete here that someone had poured. We're going to have to pull that out of the way and move it because we need a trench from that corner. That's where we're going to put our gravel perforated pipe and a couple of catch basins, and that comes along behind the tank. There were some pavers here, and this is looking good over here. We can move out around these pots, put a T here, and go over to the sump pit, which is going to be right over there by the shovels. Another line comes from back here in the low spot, catch basin, gravel perforated pipe, comes all through. What we're trying to do is collect as much groundwater when it rains, both coming up and surface water as possible, and then send it to the sump basin. And that sump pump, which is a Zoller M98 half horsepower pump, is going to lift it up and pump it right out to the street. So a couple of guys can move these pieces of concrete. Remember, concrete's heavy, and we've got to get that out of the way in order to trench. And we'll have to put them back, or at least move them back to that area when we're done. One more piece there. And then it appears that they put some type of a French drain underneath of this. There's some gravel and some fabric there. We'll find out as we start to trench down into that area. Careful of that power. You need to leave it right there, Joe. That's good. Yep. So if you have some plastic to set out as tarps, that really helps. What we're doing is we're giving this, we need to set our dirt someplace and be able to put it back. So we're going to lay out some tarps across, cover as much stuff as possible so that we're able to put the dirt out there. And we just try not to make a mess, but of course when you're excavating, nothing's going to be perfect because it is an excavation, but we try our best to make it look as good as possible when we put it back. Okay, so you can see we try to start digging in the hardest places first, and we've got an avocado tree and a couple of huge viburnums here, and you can see the root system. So we've trenched down through there. Remember, this is the discharge from the sump pump. It just needs to be down, 6 or 7 inches deep, or thereabouts. You need enough dirt to sit on top of it so that you can grow soil. So it's not a deep excavation, but with tree roots, it makes it tough. And you can see out front there, we're cutting off the sod, and it's going to discharge right out to that mailbox. One other tough spot here by this porta something, I can't remember what it's called, but we'll get through here. This is the discharge line that we're walking down. It's going to come all the way back to the sump basin, which we've already got installed. The sump pump in that box is going to sit down in here. It's going to lift that water up, and we'll trench the rest of this line all the way out to the street. Our collection area is back here in the back, and you can see Joe's got a really nice deep trench in there. We're going to put the gravel perforated pipe. We're actually using easy flow styrofoam peanuts catch basin at the beginning. You can see where we're going to connect them here. This will be a T. More gravel perforated pipe as we come down this trench all along the patio all the way back. We're also going to attach an existing catch basin. We're also going to attach an existing catch basin that was back here in the pavers. And you can see that's the French drain I was telling you about. That's just a perforated pipe with a sock around it. And the guy did a great job of installing it. Remember, it just runs out here into the yard, into a dry well or a drain field. And this works great to a certain point. But when it rains, there's so much water that comes into your ground that they just don't function. When that fills up with water, that's it. It's not like a drain field. A drain field has a pretty much fixed amount of water. You can flush your toilets, you run the shower, you've got a few 100 gallons of water, maybe even 500 gallons. That would easily be absorbed by a drain field or a dry well. But when it rains, we're talking tens of thousands of gallons, not just in this yard, but in all the yards around. That groundwater rises and the dry well no longer functions. So we're making an exterior connection, exterior coupling with a small piece of the fabric. That's not going to hurt anything. Over to our first catch basin, second catch basin, and then back there by Chuck's foot, we're going to have a T which comes around and picks up this basin that's in the patio. So now we need to cut a piece of pipe that measures from that catch basin around to the T. So one last little tip. Remember, your job as a do-it-yourselfer, we'll call you the contractor. Your job is to make this trench go downhill. If you leave a high spot, then your system doesn't work. So that's your job, is to make this thing go downhill. And it's not hard to do. When you start laying out your pipe, you will see the high spots. Come back, take a moment, and clear out that trench so that your gravity, works good. Water runs downhill, runs all the way over to the sump pit, and the pump lifts it up and takes it out. Now we're drilling a 4-inch hole. And that's to accept our pipe. And the reason that we're drilling the hole instead of cutting off that nipple is because our line's deeper. We have to have that line run downhill. We also have to be high enough in the pit that the pump will work. We can't get any lower than what we want. So in order to put our pipe into the hole we just drilled, we go ahead and slice about 4 or 6 inches. We squeeze that together, and then we slide it into the hole, and it'll open up and make a perfect fit. So let's take a look as he slides it inside. Here it is. So again, push it tight together, squeeze it super tight. You're not getting it tight yet. There you go. Almost. It's hitting the, see how it comes through. And then once it's inside, that's good, that's good. Once it's inside, it actually expands And these ridges hold it tight in place, so we're really looking good. And you can see how it's setting up. You see the pipe running back. It's going to connect to the easy flow with a Y, and back in the back we're going to put some more easy flow and a suction. We're also drilling another hole on the other side of the pit, a 4-inch hole, to accept a small bit of drainage here. You can see there from her air conditioner through that area. See how low that is right in there? It's quite low. Well, heck, we're right here. Let's go ahead and fix that. So we'll bring that in. Next, we're going to drill a 2-inch hole that comes out of the pit. That's going to be for our discharge.
What do you say?
Go.
Should I take a couple in and attach this?
Now we're drilling a 2-inch discharge pipe. We use a 2-inch hole saw because that's the exact outer diameter of 1.5-inch pipe. And you can see here's a perfect 2-inch hole that we're going to bring the 1.5-inch up from the riser of the sump pump. So here in this low spot, we're putting some of the gravelly dirt that they had here into that area just to help it perk, let that water get down through there. Catch basin, you can see it switches over to the French drain. We call it the peanut pipe. What that is 4-inch perforated pipe surrounded by styrofoam peanuts. That has voids in it. It lets the water come through, enters the perforation of the pipe, and is carried away. And we got this running all the way down. You can see it going into the sump basin at the end. So now we're going to set up the Zoller M98. You can see this is a 1/2 horsepower pump. Comes with a 3-year warranty. And this is a heavy pump. This is a great pump, probably the best pump I've ever used. And what we're going to do, first thing we're going to do is we're going to find the discharge port. And that's right there, that little threaded, that's a female threaded. We're going to use a male threaded adapter, 1.5 inch. It screws directly into that port, just as tight as you can make it with your hand. Perfect. Next we're going to cut off a piece of 1.5 inch PVC, and it's only going to come up about this high, right to here. Whoops. Only about 4 or 5 inches. And then, needs to be cut down below the bar, maybe clear down here. So make a mark. You don't need a ruler or anything, you just make a mark, take it out however you want to cut it. You can lay it flat, you can put it between your legs and make a vise. The secret is to cut clear through the pipe. Don't stop. When you stop, things get stuck. And a good hacksaw blade always helps too. Nice clean cut. Perfect. So now we're just going to temporarily just set that in place, not push it on there hard or anything, clean off the burrs and just set it in place. We don't want to push it in, we still need to glue things. Next we're going to get the check valve. It's in the box over there. Open up that box and you'll see your check valve. This particular valve came from Lowe's, and so we have to do a few different things to it in order to set it up. First thing we have to do is pull off the no-hubs off of each end. It's always best to loosen up your clamps before you start to work. When they come out of the box, they're on there pretty tight just so they don't come off. We're using a handy dandy Black & Decker, I love to tell people that, with a 5/16 inch nut driver. They're 5/16 inch on the clamps. So again, we're just loosening up the clamps so we can put them back on in the future. Next we have to pull apart the no-hub, because right now it's set up to go from 1.5 inches to 1.25 inches. We are running 1.5 inch pipe, so we need to switch them around. Pull both sides off, and you switch them around. That's still the same way. There you go. It's still the same way. Turn it around. This is the tricky part for people. Pull it off. There you go. See, now it comes from goes through the check valve, and it's all 1.5 inches. So we still got to put our clamps on here before we go any further. So it needs to be pulled apart, and we need to put a clamp on here, on both the top and the bottom. We want to go ahead and tighten those up as soon as we put them on there, because those are going to be permanent. We're not going to adjust those at all. Again, a 5/16 inch nut driver, and you tighten them up just as tight as your drill can make them. So once you get your clamps and set back in place, and you've switched around the no-hubs, remember that from Lowe's it comes backwards. We want to go from 1.5 inches to 1.25 inches, 1.25 to 1.5 inches. We want it all to be 1.5 inches as it comes through. Also notice that the arrows point upwards. That tells me that the direction of the check valve. In other words, the water flow comes this way, it cannot come back down through. So you made your measurements, now you're cutting them off. Remember, we still have to glue it all together, but it's best to dry fit things before you put things together. Once you glue things, it's permanent. Perfect fit. Looks really good. So now we need to pull everything out, take it apart, and we're going to glue up the fitting, starting at the bottom with the 1.5 inch male threaded adapter. So we're gluing up the final fitting. This is the 1.5 inch 90. It's at the top of the riser. We're going to glue up all sides at once. It's always better to do your discharge line, glue that piece first, because this piece is movable. We can twist it and turn it and then hook it up to the pump. So work from the top down, nice and tight. See, and then you can move things around. Push it nice and tight on there. Hold that for a few seconds because there's a lot of tension. We've got a 10-foot piece of pipe over here. A lot of tension on that. We don't want it to come apart. Okay, so now we're continuing the discharge. You can see we've got this pipe runs back to the sump pit. Sump pump lifts it up through that riser, through the check valve, comes down through the line, and continues all the way out. We're going to go all the way to the street. We like to use a deep well coupling. You can see how thick that coupling is. Some couplings are only, just that wide, but I like to use great big ones because it really holds it together much better. Glue up both sides, slide the pipe in, that's plenty of glue, and send it and continue on down till you get out to your discharge. Probably have to pull that pipe around a little bit to make it fit. Remember, PVC does not bend very much. You can get a little turn on it, but not much. Perfect. Now we're going to continue all the way down, and you can see we've already got the pipe laid out. We'll just keep on gluing it up all the way out to the street. Finally, you notice, remember I did put a piece of perforated pipe with cloth on it through this low spot right here. That can be in your same trench, no worries. That's just going to pick up a little bit of groundwater, send it back to the sump pit. Same thing as that easy flow does, bringing everything goes into the sump pit. We're just collecting water, sump pump lifts it up and sends it out to the street. Also, don't forget to drill a little weep hole. That little weep hole is important on the M98 because it's so powerful that it can get airlocked from the bottom of the pump up to the check valve. So we always drill a 3/16 inch. We always drill a 3/16 inch hole to let some of that air pressure out. So then you snap your lid in place, and you can see we've got our power cord coming up. This is going to run over to an extension to a outlet over here. You do need to get a GFI outlet installed beside your sump pit, but for right now we're going to put a temporary extension cord over to an outlet right over there. Okay, so we're backfilling. You can see here's our first catch basin. Remember, this is the low spot of the backyard. It's kind of hard to show you sometimes, but if you notice how low that spot is where the catch basin's sitting, all the water's running to that point, so we're picking it up there. Easy flow. This is perforated pipe surrounded by styrofoam peanuts all encased in a filtered fabric. So as groundwater floods up, it goes through the styrofoam, or if you're using gravel, it would go through the gravel. It enters the holes of the pipe, comes up in the pipe, and is carried away. Hey, this is Chuck with Apple Drains, reminding you that if you believe you can do something, I guarantee you can do it. Have a great day.